Hi lovelies, you're welcome to my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, you're welcome back and I appreciate. So in today's tutorial, I will be drafting this beautiful top from Stitches by Icy. So if this is something you are interested in, please watch this video till the end. So let's get started. So with me here, I have my pattern paper. I've gone ahead to mark my body measurement and I'll be making use of my tracing wheel for the next part of this dress. Okay, now go ahead and keep this aside. So on my pattern paper, I rule a straight line across which I labeled my shoulder line. Then from my shoulder line, I came down to my bust line. From my shoulder line, I came down to my under bust line. From my shoulder line, I came down to my front waistline, also known as my half length. Okay. Now, from my front waistline, I came down by 5 inches to get my hip line. You can come down by 6 inches. That is the least you can come down by. Then from my hip line, I came down by 2 inches just to get that curve at the center of this top. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to take my shoulder measurement of 8 inches on my shoulder line, and then for the neck wideness I made use of 2.5 inches. For the neck depth I made use of 2 inches, and this is because this dress is like a turtle neck. Okay, so I'll go ahead and connect the neck point like so, and then from this 8 inches point on my shoulder line I'll come down by 1 inch, and then I'll connect it this way to the neck wideness on the shoulder line. Okay, this is for my shoulder slope. The next thing I will do is to divide my armhole circumference divided by 2. After dividing it, I have 8.5 inches, which I mark there. Now I will go ahead and connect it to my shoulder slope like so. I also rule a straight line across like this, and this line is my chest line. So I'll go ahead and label it my chest line. After doing that, the next thing is to divide my armhole circumference by 2. I'll get the midpoint, and then from the midpoint I'll go in by half of an inch. After doing that, the next thing I'll do is to take my bust circumference divided by 4, my chest line, and then I'll go ahead to draw the front armhole like so. After doing that, the next thing I will do is to come off from my chest line by 2 inches. This is how covered I want my boobs, my cleavage to be. Okay, you can make use of 2.5 inches, 1.5 inches. Now I'm going to label this line my upper chest line. After doing that, the next thing I'll do is to divide my nipple to nipple point by 2. So dividing 8 inches by 2, I have 4 inches. From my upper chest line, I will mark that 4 inches all the way to my full length line. Okay, so after I'm done marking the point, I'll go ahead to rule a straight line across those points. Now after doing that, the next thing I'll do is to label this side my center front, this side my side front. Then on my under bust line, I'll mark 1 inch all the way to the full length line. Then on the side front, I will mark 1 inch all the way to the full length line. So 1 inch on both side front and then center front. Okay, from the under bust line. Now I'll go ahead and connect the points together like so. The next thing I will do is to connect it this way to the bust line. Okay, to form our cup. Now after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do from this point here on my upper chest line, I will mark 0.75 on the center front. Then on the side front on the upper chest line, I will mark 1 inch. Now I'll go ahead to connect the cup like so. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to connect from the upper chest line all the way to the chest line on the center front part. Okay, so this is how deep I want the neckline of the front to be. Then for the side, you don't need to connect it that deep. Okay, because the picture of this dress, the side was not connected that deep. Okay, now after doing it this way, I've gone ahead to mark my body measurement, so I'm just going to replace the dart intake on my chest line. Okay, now after doing that, I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll go ahead and replace the dart intake and I will mark it there. Then on my hip line, I will take my hip circumference divided by 4. I'll mark it there, and then I'll replace the dart intake of 2 inches as well. So now I'll go in with my pencil to connect the body point like so, because I'm going to be snatching the waist width 2 inches. So I'm going to be making use of 1 inch for the front, 1 inch for the back. So now come out by 2 inches from this hip line here to get that conical effect that this dress has at the side. And then I'll go ahead, use my pencil to connect it to my preferred shape. So make sure you are okay with the shape that you have before you use your marker to outline it. Okay, now after doing that, I'm going to be marking half of an inch. I'm snatching the waistline with half of an inch. Remember I said I'm using 1 inch to snatch the front, 1 inch to snatch the back, total of 2 inches. If you're making use of 3 inches, make use of 1.5 inches to snatch the front, 1.5 inches to snatch the back. So you'll be dividing that 1.5 inches by 2. You're going to be having 0.75. So you use 0.75 to snatch the waistline, just like I'm doing now. So you know this is one part of the dress. When you have another part of the dress, it's going to be 0.75 0.75 on both sides, making 1.5 inches. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to merge these two dots together like so, and then I'll go in with my pencil to create that shape at the down. Then from the side here on the hip line, I will come up by 1 inch, and then I'll go ahead to connect it like so to the shape that I was drawing earlier on. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and connect the down shape like so. Then I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline it after I've gotten the shape that I want. Okay, so please go ahead to use your pencil first before using your marker. Now the next thing I'm going to do, at the side below my bust line, I will come down by 1.5 inches to get my side that I mean to say. Now I'll go ahead and connect it this way because I'm going to be closing the side dart. Now the side dart is the difference between your front half length and your back half length. Okay, now I'll go ahead to divide the side front by 2. Okay, now after dividing it by 2, I'll go ahead to rule a straight line all the way from the under bust line to the hip line like so. Remember this dress, I'm going to slit it from the under bust line here. Okay, that is where the net will start from. Now this is my 1, my 2, and then my 3, and then I went ahead to label how it's going to be when I want to join it, which is very important when I'm sewing it. Okay, so to cut out the net part of this dress, I'm going to measure from my shoulder to my under bust point, which is 14.5 inches. So I'm making sure that the plain pattern paper I brought out is up to that 14.5 inches. That is from my shoulder to my under bust point. Okay, which is 14.5 inches here. Now I will go ahead and place it, that my pattern paper, from that my shoulder to my under bust point. Then I will go ahead, use my tracing wheel to trace the neck part, the shoulder part, the armhole part, the side part, and then the side that line. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to do here. Then I'll also trace the padded part, which is from the under bust to the bust point part. Okay, now after doing that, I'll go ahead to use my marker to retrace the lines back. Okay, so this is me using my marker to trace out the places that I use my tracing wheel to trace. Okay, I'm just using my marker to trace it so it will be visible to you. I can see it, so I'm just making it visible to you. Okay, now after doing that, I'll go ahead to cut this out. Now after cutting it out, for me to be able to close the side dart, I have to cut out this bust dart. Okay, I will be closing the side dart later on, so that will enable me to close the side dart. Okay, now this is all for the net part of this top for the front piece. So I'll just go ahead to label this the front net yoke, and then I'm going to be cutting this on fold because this is the front piece. Okay, now this is all for this part. So when you hold the dart, that is the bust dart, you're going to have space for your bust to sit perfectly. Okay, that is for your inner cup to sit perfectly. Now I'll go ahead to cut out this part of this dress, but remember I'm going to be cutting it from the under bust line because that is where the net of that front piece will start from, up to the shoulder part. Okay, now I'll go ahead to cut out this front piece. Okay, So after doing that, I'm going to be slashing through the bust line to close the bust side dart. So I'll just go in with my tape to tape this down. After doing that, I'll also be closing the side dart of the net, okay? So after closing the side dart of the net, I'll go ahead to cut out the excess at the side, and this is all for the front part of this dress. You can see that both sides are aligning for the net and also the tube itself. So for the center front of the bust part, cut on fold, while for the side front, cut times 2 of it, okay? Then cut times 2 for each of this. So this is all for this front piece. Remember, you have to sew the bustier area separately, then you place the net on top of it, okay? So I'll proceed to cut out the back pattern. So I've gone ahead to mark my body point on the back pattern. I did not add the zipper allowance because this dress has rope at the back, okay? Now on this first line, which I label my shoulder line, I came down to my bust line. From my shoulder line, I came down to my back waist line. Please go ahead to know the difference between your front waistline and your back waistline. Then from my back waistline here, I came down by 5 inches to get my hip line. While from the hip line, I came down by 2 inches to get that curve that this dress has at the middle of it, okay? Now I'll go ahead to mark 8 inches on my shoulder line for my shoulder measurement divided by 2. I made use of 2.5 inches for the neck wideness. I'm making use of 1 inch for the neck depth. Now go ahead to connect the neck point like so. Now from this 8 inches point, I'll come down by 1 inch to get my shoulder slope. I'll go ahead to connect the point like so. From this my shoulder slope point, I'll come down by 8.5 inches, which is my armhole circumference divided by 2. I'll mark the point, then I'll go ahead to connect it this way to my shoulder slope point. I'll also rule a straight line across like so, which I'm going to label my chest line. Now I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 on my chest line. I'll go ahead to connect the back armhole like this. The next thing I will do is to mark my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, which gives me 4 inches. I'm going to mark it all the way from the chest line to the full length line, okay? And then I will go ahead to use my marker to connect the points together. Now this is my center back, and then this is my side back. Now on my waistline, I'm going to mark half inch on both sides of the dart, okay? Then I'll go ahead to connect it this way to the hip line like so. I'll also connect it this way to the chest line. So I already took my bust measurement on my chest line. I'll replace the dart intake on my bust line here on my chest line. And then on my waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll mark the point there, then I will replace the dart intake that I have there as well. On my hip line, I'll take my hip circumference divided by 4. I will mark the point that there's no dart to be replaced there, okay? Now I'll go ahead and connect the body point together like so. Now I'm using my pencil to do this because I'm going to be snatching the waistline, okay, just like I did for the front pattern. Now I'm going to be snatching the waistline with half of an inch, just like I did for the front. Now I'll go ahead to bring the front side, okay? I'm going to bring the front side, then I will place it on that half inch that I'm using to snatch the back waistline like so. Then I'll go ahead and trace it, trace the same shape. The reason for doing this is most times when you don't do it this way, the front side shape will be different from the back side shape. So this is the reason why I'm doing it this way, okay? Now after tracing out the same shape, I'll go ahead use my marker to outline this. So I'm just using my marker to um outline this properly, okay? Now after doing this, the next thing I'm going to do is to try to get that curve that I did for the down at the front also for the back, okay? Now you can use your pencil to get the curve. When you are satisfied with what you have, you can go in with your marker to outline it. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is to go in by 3 inches from the chest line, then on the full length line go in by 1 inch on the center back area, then go ahead to connect the 2 points together like so. And this is it for the rope area, that is the eyelet part. Okay, now come up from the chest line by 1 inch on the center back like this, and then connect it to this point where the rope starts from. Okay, on the chest line. Now this is where you're going to be inserting your button. Okay, this is the yoke part of this dress. You can also make the yoke this other shape. Okay, so now I will divide my side back from the waistline by 2. I will rule a straight line from the chest line to the hip line. Okay, so I'm just dividing the side back by 2. After doing that, this is my 1, 2, 3. So I'm just indicating how I'm going to place this when sewing. It is very important that you do that. Okay, now this is it for the back yoke. You're going to cut times 2 of it. So I'll go ahead now to cut this out. So after cutting this out, I'm going to be cutting the back yoke times 2 of it, then times 2 for each of this. Okay, now this is all for the back pattern of this dress. So you're going to cut all round with half of an inch. Okay, now this is it for the front pattern as well. Then this is it for the net. So this is it for this tutorial. I'll see you in my next video. Please do not forget to subscribe, comment, share and like. Bye, and thanks for watching.